hear it.
There we go. I guess we will start the meeting then.
Well, it's
So-
I didn't know how many people would show up with the election going on. If people are glued to
Yeah,
the television or not.
They could probably watch two things at one time, I imagine, in this world of multitasking.
Yeah.
Not me.
Uh,
I don't have a book. I don't have a book on elections.
so
I get a good collection of the books now. Mainly on the diet.
Oh, I thought you needed this. I got plenty of it. Yeah.
I think we have some new people tonight. Right? Is Peter and Barbara, are you guys new?
We
Yes,
are.
we are.
So how'd you hear about the classes?
Little birdie told, no, I'm not.
Virgil and
Marilyn.
Marilyn Stanley,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
also Kurt and Diane Wallace, and my primary care.
wow.
All right.
I
Hi.
don't.
Yes,
What?
you know us.
Yeah, we know you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Speaking of Kurt and Diane,
Yeah.
Yes, speaking of Diane anyway.
Uh,
Thought I better say hi and catch up. I saw it was a question and answer session.
yeah. Glad you
Haven't
came
seen
back.
Paul for a while. It's been a year or so. I think we pretty much were through most of classes, but we wanted to get back and get, re-going and thinking about it again.
Great. Love to have you.
Yeah, good to see you both.
I see Lynn's in the room. I got an email from you, but somehow it got lost. I'm getting, I don't know, 40 emails a day now
Wow.
between the medical school and other things. And so I'll search around in my deleted files or whatever. But if you don't hear from me, it's because I lost it. So send me the note one more time, if you will, and I'll respond to you. I just got busy today. It was a pretty busy day. Nice to see Lisa, Chick, our medical student, in the background, listening in again, busy learning things. Lisa, I'm like feeling like the fire hose, drinking out of it now, starting a couple weeks ago with the musculoskeletal system. Going back when I cracked open Barbara Bates's book and there were 100 pages, I gasped and I said, I don't know how I could ever learn all this. And then I thought of, how do the pygmies eat an elephant? I'm not much of one to eat animals, but I've learned they do it one bite at a time. They don't do it all at once. And so I dug in, and for an hour or two every single day, I've been waking up or going to sleep or studying throughout the day to try to buff up on things that I've long since forgotten. But it's been life enhancing.
You've done it once, you can do it again.
Well, thanks for the encouragement. I appreciate it. Anyway, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Anybody have anything that they care to share with the group? Something's been going on that you would like to ask or that you just want to share? We like to kind of maybe do that, one or two of you in the beginning, and then continue on, and then we might have a question or two at the end.
Yeah, I have a question. What's a neutrophil?
A neutrophil? Yeah,
Yeah.
so when you take blood out of a person or you give blood, you have red cells and you have white blood cells and you have plasma, which is, contains the clotting proteins and many
I know.
other things. So it's a white blood cell, the neutrophil. And neutrophils, if you have a large number of them, more than normal, that can oftentimes be associated with a bacterial infection. But neutrophils fight off infection. They're like scavengers in your body,
Yeah,
protect you.
I just got the thing back and it said it's low on it.
So a little low on a neutrophil doesn't mean a lot. Sometimes it's associated with a viral infection, but sometimes it could be normal for you.
It's not much, no.
If it's not much, then I wouldn't lose 1 minute of sleep tonight.
I don't. I
Good.
just want to know what a neutrophil is.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes,
Diane?
Diane.
Well, Gout visited the family for the first time. I don't know if we did a little bit of research, but that's kind of a surprise, what it does to the body.
Yeah. So Scott, do you want to talk about that a little bit or what?
Yeah, so there's different kinds of gout. There's regular gout and pseudo gout. So gout is caused by high uric acid, and pseudo gout's calcium crystals. And so the typical is gout with uric acid crystals. So basically, you get too much concentration of uric acid in the blood and the tissues, and then it crystallizes and then gets stuck in the joints, and you get the big red swollen toe and that kind of thing. That's what it is. So but uric acid comes from the breakdown products of animals. Basically, it's DNA, purines, which are just particles of DNA. And so usually you get gout from the highest risk products for gout would be processed meats, so like beef jerky, pepperoni, sausage, those kinds of things, like cured meats, also seafood like oysters, clams, scallops, things like that. And then alcohol increases it, and white flour, white sugar can increase it a little bit, increase your uric acid. So generally, when you're if you go on a more whole food plant-based diet, you reduce your risk for gout because you don't eat the animal products or the processed foods. So, but there's also some other caveats. Some people genetically overproduce uric acid. Some people undersecrete it, don't get rid of it as well. Also, when you're losing weight rapidly, you release some of the stored uric acid in the fat tissue, so that rapid weight loss can sometimes increase the risk for a gout flare-up. But yeah, I guess that's just a basic overview.
So in my experience, I've had several people who've actually been able to get off of their gout medicine when they changed to a totally whole food plant-based diet.
My second husband had the gout, and he said it was beans, beer, and beef. That combination will do that. And he ate a lot of chili with hamburger meat in it, So, and he said a cup of cherries will cure that, but you have to do it every day on a regular basis.
So,
Well,
yeah,
cherries. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh yeah, cherry juice can help. But actually, interestingly, there are some plant foods that are high in purines. I think beans have a fair amount, but interestingly, when they look at studies, the plant sources of uric acid and purines don't seem to cause gout flare-ups. So it seems to be specific to the processed foods and the animal purines that lead to gout. So you don't need to worry about cutting out plant-based sources of purines when you look at lists of foods to avoid with gout, because if you isolate those out with studies on plant purines, they don't tend to cause gout.
It's the alcohol in the beef. That's what does it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The most common one I see in the clinic, I probably don't go 2 weeks without getting a patient with gout. And a lot of times it's, oh yeah, they had 2-for-1 oysters in Newport, and and then I had a couple of glasses of wine and a beer, and and that's all it took,
Yeah.
One last question before we go ahead and continue on with a few more questions. Yes, go ahead. Is it Demetra? Just unmute yourself first.
Okay.
Good job.
This is my second round doing the whole foods plant-based way of eating, and I have a cholesterol issue or question. It wasn't very high. I think the total cholesterol was like 212, but I want to get it to around 180 or something like that. And so I'm thinking, whole foods, plant-based is going to get me there. But how long does it take for me? I've been on it for 3 weeks now for it to show up in my blood.
So how strictly are you following totally whole plant foods?
Let's see, no
Sure.
dairy.
Kurt,
I went for dinner 2 nights ago with my son, and they didn't have any kind of vegan or vegetarian meal, so I had a fish taco, but that's the only animal thing I've had in 3 weeks. No dairy.
Okay, so I want to give you my experience. My experience was I had a cholesterol level hovering around the 240 range,
Mhm.
and I went totally whole plant food for my wife's sake. This was about 10 and a half years ago, maybe almost 11 now. I keep saying 10, but it's getting closer to 11. So how did we do totally? We went through our cupboards and took out every animal product. We took out anything that was related to dairy. We took out anything that was processed, that's packaged cookies, crackers, chips, anything like that. We got rid of the oil. We packed it up and gave it to our kids, anything that was processed. So it was totally whole plant foods that we stuck with. And 30 days later, that's how much? 30 days, a month. I
Yeah.
took my blood test and it was 148.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
And it can vary. Everybody has different levels of enzymes in their liver that breaks cholesterol down. Everybody has a different amount of cholesterol stored in their liver, because we don't need to take in cholesterol. We make in our liver all that we need. And so, it can drop. I've had patients where it dropped 30 points in 3 months or 6 months, and they're going all in on it. And then I've had patients that dropped 100 points in like 3 months. So it can just vary greatly. All you can really control, you can't control your number, but all you can really do is control what you're eating. And I would just tell patients to focus on what you're eating and is it the healthiest choice that you could make, and do whatever you're prepared to do. But just knowing that you can control only so much, and you can control what you eat, but you can't control how your number is going to respond necessarily. So don't get discouraged either way.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I forgot to mention, during that month, I didn't eat out once.
Oh,
So I was in complete control of the food sources, because eating out tends to have lots of extra oils and potentially fats
mhm.
that may raise your cholesterol level a bit.
Yeah, I did fail to say that I used about 3 tablespoons of oil in this 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So
So
olive oil.
again, you may have some dramatic benefits and get your cholesterol below 150 with what you're doing, based
Mhm.
upon, your particular body. Maybe you do not have to do this completely like I do. But if people are not getting the benefits that they want, I encourage them to give it a try for at least a solid month, to see what benefit they get. And then they can choose to go back and eat whatever they want, but they at least have a good idea of what benefit they could get.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Who else? This has been fun so far. Okay. Scott, are we ready to kind of go on to the questions?
Yeah, do you remember which number we left off on?
No, but we're going to go back and we're going to
Oh.
figure it out. Right.
Yeah, I'll know when you see it. Which question? I think it was like 18 or 19, somewhere around there.
Yeah, something like that. Let's see if I can close these down so I can get to the questions here. There we go. You can see the screen, I hope.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going down to, we went over how our planet is affected by what we eat. we went over processed meats are considered class 1 carcinogens by the
Yeah,
WHO.
you already did 18. We're basically at 19.
Okay, so let's
Right.
get down to 19. What all of us should know when we get done with these classes is about butyrate signaling, whatever that is. Why might this be important for weight control? So if you're trying to lose weight, what is butyrate signaling about? So we're going to go to the video and let's see, it's 19.
Mhm.
It's paleo poo, but it is not. I don't have the video actually. Let's see. I guess I'm going to go to nutritionfacts.org and pull it up. For those of you who are new to the class, there's a site that we encourage you to get familiar with. It's called nutritionfacts.org. Dr. Michael Greger's site here. And we're going to do a search for this video that I wanted to show you. And we're going to play it for you. Let's see. Here we go. It's all free.
In the US, we tend to get less than 20 grams of fiber a day, only about half the minimum recommended intake. But in populations where many of our deadliest diseases are practically unknown, rural China, rural Africa, they're eating huge amounts of whole plant foods, up to 100 grams of fiber a day or more, which is what it's estimated our Paleolithic ancestors were getting based on dietary analyses of modern-day primitive hunter-gatherer tribes and by analyzing coprolites, human fossilized feces. In other words, paleo poop. These most intimate of ancient human artifacts were often ignored or discarded during many previous archaeological excavations, but careful study of materials painstakingly recovered from human paleofeces says a lot about what ancient human dietary practices were like given their incredibly high content of fiber, undigested plant remains, strongly suggesting that for over 99% of our existence as a distinct species, our gastrointestinal tract has been exposed to the selective pressures exerted by a fiber-filled diet of whole plant foods. So for millions of years before the first stone tools and evidence of butchering, our ancestors were eating plants. But what kind of plants? One way you can tell if animals are natural folivores or frugivores, meaning leaf eaters or fruit eaters, is to map the area of absorptive mucosa in our gut versus their functional body size. Folivores are those meant to eat mostly foliage, leaves, while frugivores are better designed to eat fruit. The faunivores eat the fauna, another name for carnivore. If you chart animals out this way, they fall along distinct lines. So where do humans land? Here's our functional body size, and here's our absorptive area. So while eating our greens is important, it appears the natural dietary status of the human species is primarily that of a fruit eater. Why does it matter how much fiber we used to eat? Well, one theory for the rising levels of obesity in Western populations is that the body's mechanisms for controlling appetite evolved to match how many plants we used to eat. Our ancestors ate so many plant foods, we were getting like 100 grams of fiber a day, so for millions of years, food equaled fiber. So no surprise, one of the physiological mechanisms our body evolved to suppress our appetite involved this fiber. For example, fiber is metabolized by our gut flora into short-chain fatty acids, which bind to and activate receptors on the surfaces of our cells that alter our metabolism. For example, activating receptors on fat cells to increase the expression of the weight-reducing hormone leptin. Other hormones are affected as well. Since until recently, food meant fiber. An increase in food intake meant an increase in fiber intake, which made our gut bacteria so happy they made lots of short-chain fatty acids, activating the cell surface receptors, releasing a bunch of hormones that make us lose our appetite and downregulate hunger, so we eat less. But if we eat less, there's less fiber in our gut, so less of these hormones are released, which boosts our appetite, we get hungry, and we want to eat. But what if food doesn't equal fiber, like on the standard American diet? Then we keep just getting those signals to eat, eat, eat. We're always hungry. If we haven't eaten our 100 grams of fiber for the day, our body may be like, what, are we starving here? Discovering this mechanism makes the food and pharmaceutical industries very excited. They figure they can now come up with, the new drugs in the fight against the current obesity onslaught, or we could just eat as nature intended.
So bottom line there is that if we go back to the question, the butyrate signaling, why might this be important in weight control? I hope you understand that fiber is the food for the bacteria that make up our microbiome, the bacteria in our large colon. We feed the good bacteria and they feed us back butyrate, which helps shut down our desire to eat. It also is an anti-inflammatory chemical, butyrate, which calms our body and cuts down on the inflammatory response, which leads to a number of chronic diseases. That microbiome also produces 90% of the serotonin in our body, the feel-good hormone that we try to replace with so many antidepressant, anti-anxiety pills instead of food as medicine. Okay, I hope you all got that. If you didn't, we'll take a question. But first, we're going to talk about oil and sludging of blood. So let's go to that. And I wonder if this is it. It says the video is unavailable. Well, I have it somewhere else.
Is that the Dr. McDougall one with the
Yeah, it
sludging of the
is.
blood? Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop this, and actually I'm gonna search around real quickly and find it. It's under the heart stuff on that. And maybe, Scott, you have some other comments about the microbiome or whatever else. And if you don't,
Sure. The butyrate, with butyrate signaling, Dr. Greger in that video talked about the short chain fatty acids that feed that are what the gut microbiome produced when we feed them fiber, and butyrate's one of those short chain fatty acids. And also interestingly, butyrate's the primary chemical, the short chain fatty acid that feeds our colon mucosa. So the cells that line our colon eat or get basically fed and kept healthy by butyrate. So that's why we need fibers to feed that gut microbiome. They produce that butyrate, feed our gut mucosa, keeps it healthy, keeps us from getting polyps and cancer and ulcerative colitis and Crohn's and diverticula and all the bad stuff that happens in our colon. If we have lots of butyrate around, then our gut stays healthy.
iPhone, you have your hand raised. So go ahead and unmute and ask the question.
He talked about leptin, which is kind of associated as losing weight. Can you say where that comes in? Because he talks pretty fast.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does. Scott, you want to talk about leptin?
Yeah, leptin's a hormone that makes you feel full. And so we want to have leptin around when we've eaten a lot of food. We get leptin gets stimulated, and that makes us feel full. And then ghrelin, GHERLIN, that's the hormone that makes you feel hungry. So think of G for ghrelin as growling stomach. That's how I always remember it. And leptin makes you feel full. And so leptin is really important to have a lot of that around after we've eaten. And then some people, I think they've done studies on leptin sensitivity and leptin resistance. And some people, I think part of it's because if we're resistant to leptin, then we don't get that efficient signal that we're full. And so there's lots of studies going on with that. But I think that video really demonstrates how, as long as we get enough fiber, we'll get that leptin signaling correct, and we'll feel full with the fiber. And if we eat lots of low fiber foods like processed foods and animal foods, there's no fiber, and so then we're always feeling hungry all the time.
So leptin and butyrate are both important in the colon, and they both can help you control weight.
Yeah, leptin
Correct.
works with the appetite, more with the appetite than in the colon. It's basically it's a chemical that gets released when your stomach gets stretched out and you have lots of fiber in your diet and whatnot. Then that signal, that leptin, goes to your brain and tells your brain that you're full. So it's more of a hormone that way as far as the leptin. The butyrate acts more locally at the colon level, and then the leptin goes up to the brain. So they all work together, but yeah, you got the right idea.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome. So for the new people in class, one of the things that you hear repeatedly is that, where are you getting protein? And that really is not the deficiency in our standard American diet. We get more than enough protein. In fact, we get protein overload, which leads to chronic kidney disease in a number of people. The deficiency in the American diet is fiber. And however you can get more fiber in your diet, that would be a healthy choice. How do you get more fiber? Where does the fiber come from? It comes from, fiber is like the skeleton in plants. Animals have bones for their skeleton, plants have fiber. And so there is no animal product that has any fiber whatsoever in it. And all plants, whether it's fruit or vegetables or whole grains or legumes, they all have fiber in varying amounts. Some of the highest amounts of fiber are in beans and lentils, the legumes. And then there are about maybe 6 to 8 grams of fiber in a serving, which is like a half a cup of beans or lentils. And then for a fruit, vegetable, or whole grain, there's approximately 3 to 4 grams of fiber in a serving of those. So you can add it up. If you follow Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, which is a free app that you can download on your smartphone for, it's free, called Daily Dozen. It's Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. It will, he'll encourage you to have 3 servings of legumes a day, 3 servings of whole grains, 4 servings of fruit, and 5 servings of vegetables. That's what I try to simulate. Doesn't always work out, but it's working well for me and for a number of other people.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go back here to the video about oil and what it does when you're cooking with oil, a lot of oil, or eating a lot of oil. I'm gonna go to the share, and we're gonna go to #1 American killer, heart disease.
Representation of what happens when you eat high-fat meals. Watch this. This is a dramatic representation of what happens when you eat a high-fat meal, whether it's vegetable fat or animal fat. Initially, the blood cells, they flow by each other very smoothly. They actually repel each other, the cell membranes do, and you have this rapid, effective blood flow throughout the body. Then you eat the fat, vegetable or animal fat, goes through the gut into the bloodstream, coats the blood cells, and now they hit, stick, clumps, sludge, and now you have ineffective circulation. This affects the whole body. You feel sleepy and sluggish. People who have narrowed heart arteries, they get chest pain. This clumping and sludging causes the blood pressure to go up, and it continues, this sludging, for about 10 to 12 hours after you eat. And finally, after about 10 to 12 hours, the blood starts to break up, and we then have normal, effective circulation.
Boy, that was shocking. I'll bet my...
One more video you might be interested
The fatty
in
material
watching.
called atherosclerosis.
This is a beautiful example of what atherosclerosis looks like. There it is.
So what this is a cardiac surgery, which is demonstrating plaque formation in coronary artery, a heart artery. Heart disease is our #1 killer, cardiovascular disease. And this is what you don't want. And you'll see as they pull this out, it's kind of gross.
And I'm going to just gently tug on this now.
I love it.
It's a little hard to pull. Dr. Coupad, if you could give it a little pull too. We'll see if we can get this thing out.
We are just holding our breath so that you will finish the case.
There it is. America's #1 killer right there before your eyes.
It's important to understand that the heart itself usually remains healthy until the arteries are damaged. Arteriosclerosis.
Okay, so hopefully I haven't grossed you out too much with that video.
No.
Okay, good. We want to get you to thinking, though, that you don't really want to develop atherosclerosis or clogging of your arteries. And one of the risk factors for clogging arteries has to do with what? It has to do with your cholesterol level, but it's only one factor. Another thing that causes your arteries not to be healthy, but to get sick, build up plaque, is high blood pressure. So you don't want high blood pressure. Another thing that you might not be aware of is there's a chemical called trimethylamine. Trimethylamine N-oxide, or trimethylamine, gets converted in the body into trimethylamine N-oxide. And it's an inflammatory product which kind of pushes the bad cholesterol into your arteries, forming plaque. You don't want that. And if you spend time with the science, you find out that what you eat can create inflammatory chemicals like TMAO. And you will find, if you dig into the science a bit more, spend a little bit more time with the classes, that meat, dairy, and eggs tend to promote bacterial growth, which produces this chemical, which produces the inflammation, whereas plant-based foods don't produce this TMAO. So that's another reason for making food choices that you may not have realized were so healthy. But try to stick with the science, keep reading and learning about it, and you may get as excited about this as we are. Let's go on to the next one.
21.
21. Are there special considerations when cooking garlic and broccoli? What about flax seeds? Does cooking destroy enzymes? Do flax seeds need to be ground up? Let's have a little discussion about this. Let's take garlic and broccoli and those things. Anyone want to share their thoughts about that?
Broccoli, you have to cook, but very gentle. You have to braise it, basically, not, steam it.
Yeah, so if you cook broccoli, you kill an enzyme which prevents the formation of sulforaphane. And so if you can only stand cooked broccoli and you don't want to eat any fresh sprigs. You can add a pinch of mustard powder to the cooked broccoli, and it will give you a greater amount of this cancer-fighting, anti-inflammatory kind of compound, sulforaphane. A pinch of mustard powder after you've cooked the broccoli. Now, if you eat raw broccoli, or if you chop up the broccoli and let it rest on the table counter for about 45 minutes, I believe it is, the enzyme will do its work, and then you can cook the heck out of it if you choose to. I personally like raw broccoli. My wife likes it steamed, so she puts a pinch of mustard powder, and so I get a little anyway, whether I need it or not. It tastes kind of good. Let's talk about garlic. Garlic, yeah, go ahead, Trouty.
With raw broccoli, doesn't it destroy the thyroid activity?
You know, there's been some, I don't know, it's not necessarily fake news. If you ate enough raw broccoli, perhaps you could influence the thyroid production, but for the amounts that we're eating, you'd have to eat more than we're used to eating. I don't know how many cups a day you'd need to do that, but
okay, yeah.
You know, for a cup of broccoli a day, it's not a problem. It's not going to cause any problem.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, because I did it one time and it did not do anything to my thyroid.
Right. But, you know, myths persist. And, you know, if you ate enough of it, potentially it could be a problem. I don't know how much it is. I don't know if you know, Scott, how much broccoli you'd have to eat, but it would be a lot. Nancy.
It'd be a lot.
Well, actually, she asked the question I was going to ask, and what I'd read is it's not only the raw broccoli, but if you're also eating other vegetables in that family at this around the same time, like cabbage, you know, slaw, or any number of things in that family, that you could have the effect, especially if your thyroid is already compromised. So I'm interested in that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the cruciferous family. So that's
Right.
You know, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, those types of things. So yeah, you would have to eat a whole lot, which is why it's so important, like why Dr. Greger has the Daily Dozen, and in these classes we always talk about eating a wide variety of you know, vegetables and foods, you know, with the colors of the rainbow. And part of the reason is because, you know, you can get too much of a good thing, and again, you'd have to eat such a huge amount of cruciferous vegetables to suppress the thyroid and get a goiter. And so we shouldn't really worry about it. But we would, at the same time, I would say, don't just eat cruciferous vegetables. Eat lots of other leafy greens and other families of vegetables too.
Well, and I wondered, does it make a difference if you have a healthy thyroid, you're in one condition. If you have a thyroid condition already, are you more vulnerable to the effect?
Yes, you are.
I don't know about that.
I don't particularly believe that you are more vulnerable to it.
But you have to make sure you get enough iodine as well. So if you want to balance, you know, if you're eating lots of cruciferous vegetables, whether you have a thyroid condition or not, you got to make sure you're getting a good source of iodine too. Then because if you're tons of cruciferous vegetables and lack iodine, then I would say you're more vulnerable than if you have an ample supply of iodine. But I don't know about the answer to the question about whether if you already have a thyroid condition. My educated guess is it's probably, I don't believe there's a relationship, but because there's so many other reasons people have thyroid issues, it's usually autoimmune problems and not related to diet.
Okay, thanks.
Autoimmune, and like Scott said, lack of adequate amount of iodine supplementation. People are told don't eat salt, so they cut out all the salt, they cut out all the iodine in their diet, and they don't eat sea vegetables as a group. So eating some sea vegetable will give you some iodine, or get some iodine tablets. 150 micrograms a day is what the current recommendation is for iodine.
How many was that?
150 micrograms a day. Peter and Barbara Lopez.
Yeah, I've got a question. In this discussion, are we talking about organically grown vegetables only?
No. Organically grown is a healthy choice. It's probably best for the world. But the benefits of eating fruits and vegetables, whether they're organically grown or not, outweighs any of the disadvantages. So for a family or people who are having problems with paying a bit more for the organic choices, just buy the conventional.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I get a lot of information this time.
Well, keep listening in. We're going on to the next question.
Here's the iPhone guy.
Oh, okay. iPhone. Go ahead, Ken.
D3. Have we talked about that?
What is it?
Vitamin D3.
Vitamin D3. We've talked about it in the past, but we haven't talked about it tonight. What would you like to know about it?
Well, I just noticed it was on my list of things that I take, and I get it out of a multivitamin. I know you don't think we need them, but my urologists have some effect on me because they're trying to help me fight muscle and bone loss.
Well, Ken, you may be surprised to learn that I take vitamin D3 most every day. During the winter, I take 2,000 to 4,000 units a day of vitamin D3 because I keep my body covered up. I don't go out with showing a lot of skin.
Yeah.
And
I was confused.
Yeah.
I might get about another vitamin because I know about three. It's made by your skin in the presence of sunlight.
Yeah, so you can make vitamin D if you're living in Southern California or in Mexico along the equator, and you are wearing shorts and short sleeve shirts and whatever it is, you show enough skin, potentially you could get enough vitamin D through the natural source, which would be likely the best way. But living up here in Oregon, we don't really get enough sun rays and we're covered up. So Dr. Greger recommends 2,000 international units of D3 every day for all of us. Some of us may need more, some of us may need less. You can do vitamin D levels and you can follow it along and decide what is best for you, or talk it over with your doctor and make that decision. Okay, let's get on to the next issue, whatever that might be.
You left off with garlic. You didn't go to the answer for 21 yet. We talked about it, but we didn't show the answer. So go down to 21 answers.
21.
Yep.
All right, here you go. Cooking strategy to broccoli. Is there garlic? Anti-cancer effects of garlic. Let's see what garlic has to say here while we're on this. Thank you. How to use garlic, anti-cancer effects. Let's see. Garlic fighting it. Does it show it? The best detox. It doesn't have it. What can I tell you? Other than we can talk about it. We can talk about garlic. Every morning I take a garlic bulb and I break off a couple of the cloves, maybe 2 or 3. It depends on the size. And then I chop them up. I chop them up pretty fine, not completely fine. They're, I don't know, what's the term that you would use for, I don't mash it.
Crush it.
And I don't crush it. I chop it up into little 2 to 3 millimeter size by 2 to 3 millimeter.
Oh, you missed it.
Yeah, mincing or whatever it is. Okay, so I chop it up and I give half to my wife and I take half and we eat it raw. Why do we eat it raw? Because if you cook broccoli, you destroy an enzyme, which again destroys the chemical. Goes from, I think it's allicin to allium. I can't remember. What is it? Do you remember?
I think it's
I think that's
Allison.
right. Yeah. And it's the, is it myrcene is the enzyme or something? like
Yeah,
that?
myrcene
Yeah.
is the enzyme. So if you destroy that enzyme, you don't get the anti-cancer effects and the real full effect of the garlic. Now, if you just let the garlic rest for about 15 minutes on the table, then it does its work and the enzyme converts everything it needs. Then you can cook it if you want to do a stir fry or whatever it is. So let your garlic rest if you're going to be cooking it. Otherwise, eat some raw so that you'll have some of that enzyme to get the most benefit out of your garlic when you eat it. Does
I
that
have a-
make sense?
I have a question. I
Yes.
take aged garlic pills. I'm allergic to garlic very, very badly.
Yeah.
But it's the only thing I can take. Do I still get that allicin and still the benefit of it?
I don't know the answer to that. Scott, have you heard anything at one of the seminars? What garlic pills?
No, I don't know if they've studied it or not, but
I would be concerned about that because you can't eat cooked garlic.
No. Nothing.
Well, I guess some garlic is better than no garlic, and maybe there will be some of that that is in there. I'm not sure who would find out. Maybe Gregor would have the answer to that at some point, perhaps. So when we see him next, we'll ask him.
Because I don't want to spend money on things that doesn't work, you know?
I've kept my eyes and ears open, and in 10 years, I haven't seen anything that shares that information with us. But if someone else sees it,
I
let
take it
us know.
right now. I take the
Okay.
aged garlic right now, but I can't take anything else.
Okay, Barbara,
I've studied garlic quite a bit, and I think, Charlie, you might be right. In fact, I had read that you have to expose the surfaces, you know, like I chop it up and let it rest. And they said like for 30 minutes for it to fully develop. And then you can go ahead and do whatever. But it seems like there's a process, an interaction taking place there that you wouldn't get just from, you know, preparing garlic for a capsule. So yeah, it's a interesting question. I have not seen the answer.
Well,
And I'm
thanks for sharing
wondering-
that. Go ahead, Barbara.
I was wondering about if you get minced garlic, it does have citric acid in it. This is like the
Costco.
Kirkland Costco giant, you know, garlic. We eat a lot of it, but would it have those benefits or maybe not?
I believe it would have the benefits because it's been chopped and it's been sitting there all chopped up. So my guess is that would probably be
But
fine.
Good.
If it's in a jar, it's been cooked, so it's been cooked possibly before it was chopped up. I mean, before it was
You know-
rested.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah, it doesn't say that. It just says half a teaspoon is approximately the same as a clove of garlic. It's garlic. It has a little water in it and citric acid.
You know, what you could do is call the company and ask them, how do you process this? Do you, you know, chop it up and allow it to rest?
Yeah.
You know, have you taken into account that the enzyme is required to break down, you know, to get the health product? And what's your answer to that?
It does
And
say
try-
to store it away from sunlight, so that would damage it. I don't know if it would damage it if it was cooked, but
Exactly. Good point. Yes.
Fix your
Scott.
camera, Charlie. Or just saying fix your camera. We're only seeing the top of your head.
Oh, okay.
there we go.
It just is kind of a floppy laptop here that I'm using. It's getting old, like yours truly, but.
Better
All
than
right, well, this is an interesting topic. We've been doing this for a couple of years, or almost 3 now. And we've both been doing this for a lot longer, 6, 8, 10 years. And we get new questions like this all the time. So it is kind of interesting, and we're going to keep our eyes and ears open to try to figure out what's going on with the garlic.
Well-
Go ahead.
I was
Barbara.
just gonna say, while I have a minute to ask about fiber, I understand how important that is for colon health and all that. I'm wondering if fiber tablets it doesn't seem like they would have the nutrients that the fruits and vegetables that have fiber. But
You're so smart. I love what you just said. That's exactly what we're trying to teach. And that's exactly what Dr. Greger says. He says, in reviewing of the literature, the supplements don't necessarily have the same effects as eating the food in its natural state and getting the fiber that way. That's what we're encouraging you to do.
thank you.
So you
All
came
the-
to one meeting and all of a sudden you're teaching us. Thank you. I'm happy and surprised.
All these delicious aliens and such. What about ginger root? I think we should have, I think, is it on the Daily Dozen? I can't remember.
Yeah, ginger root is a spice, and it is a healthy one. Any spice is healthy, and ginger is one of those that is, I can't remember, one of the better anti-inflammatory foods that you could be exposed to. So fresh ginger would be great. Even any kind of ginger. Ginger that you just sprinkle in a tea or on your food would be great to add for the day. But if you wanted the best anti-inflammatory, it would be turmeric. And he recommends a 1/4 teaspoon a day. Some people take a half or up to a teaspoon a day, but whatever you choose to do, Greger recommends a 1/4 teaspoon a day.
Yeah,
And
all the
ginger-
different.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll say all the different herbs and spices all have lots of antioxidants. It's just all this herbs and spices aren't necessarily a daily dozen, but the turmeric is, because there's a lot of science behind turmeric. There's been a lot of good randomized controlled trials, lots of studies that show the potent anti-inflammatory effects of the turmeric, the 1/4 teaspoon with a pinch of black pepper, which has the enzyme in it that increases the absorption and makes the anti-inflammatory effect, which is the curcumin part of the turmeric. The curcumin is the yellow pigment that's in turmeric, and that's the anti-inflammatory component. And black pepper has an enzyme in it that stimulates or it amplifies that curcumin's anti-inflammatory effect by 2000%. So that's why it gets, because of all that science, that's why it gets a spot on the Daily Dozen. But think about every herb and spice you can put in your dishes. Those all are loaded with antioxidants, and they all count towards the 30 different plant foods that Dr. Will Bulsiewicz recommends for having the healthiest gut microbiome. So he's the author of the Fiber Fueled book, he's a gastroenterologist, and you'll have the healthiest gut microbiome if you can get 30 different plants in your diet per week. And that sounds like a lot, but when you think about all the different herbs and spices, all the different plants and foods that you have, different grains and beans and fruits and vegetables, it's actually not as hard as it sounds to get that diversity.
I have a question. What about white pepper? Is that the same good as black pepper?
White pepper? I don't know. I've never heard of
I
white
don't know
pepper.
the answer to that.
I think botanically white pepper is not this an albino version of black pepper. It's a different thing entirely. So if you want to get those black pepper advantages, I think you actually have to use black pepper. White pepper can't substitute. I mean, it may have other benefits, but not the black pepper activation of other things.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about flax seeds for a moment, because a lot of people don't quite get the concept that they think they're getting good benefit from eating flax seeds that they've sprinkled on their food, their salad, and putting in a soup. And what happens is, unless you crush that flax seed up, you don't get the omega-3 benefits from the flax seed. So make sure that you're crushing up flax seeds. You don't have to do that with sesame seeds, but with flax seeds, you want to crush them, grind them. You can do it by hand. You can do it in a nut grinder, however you want to do it. We do a tablespoon apiece every day. That's what Gregor recommends. Some people do a couple tablespoons a day. It's part of the daily dozen because of the omega-3 benefits.
You can also buy it as flax meal. I just buy the Bob's Red Mill flax meal that's at Fred Meyer in the Nutrition Center. It's in the refrigerator, and I keep it in the refrigerator. I go through a whole bag every month, pretty much. So that's about how long it lasts in the fridge, is about a month or so.
And the advantage of buying the seeds is you can keep them in your counter or in the cupboards for months, and then just keep grinding them. So either way works just good. Thanks for adding that. That's the advantage to have both of us here kind of bouncing back and forth a little bit about this. We kind of complement, we try to anyway, as best as we can. Any questions from the group about these broccoli, garlic, flax seeds, or any other foods that you might be interested in?
Yeah, I got problem with flaxseed. I cannot take a whole lot. I never get off the toilet. It's too much for me.
Well, then, you know,
I just a little bit over it. I have to remember that.
all of us have slightly different bodies, and if something doesn't work for you, then you find something else. If you can't get omega-3s from flax seeds, you don't have to go in the corner and cry or sob. All you need to do is say, where can I get my omega-3s? And you say, well, maybe walnuts. They have omega-3. Oh, maybe I could get it from sea vegetables like dulse or wakame or nori. Yeah, there are ways that I can do this. I don't always have to be confined to one food choice.
Good, good.
Okay.
Can I ask,
Susan, yes.
what it, I thought chia seeds were as good as flaxseed. Is that correct?
Dr. Gregor seemed to feel that flax seeds had a bit more omega-3s, but I think chia seeds are pretty high. I don't know, Scott, what's your latest take? You've been going to the meetings.
Yeah, chia seeds are fine. Yeah, just not quite as high as flax, and not as many studies. A lot of times, a lot of the food recommendations have to do with the levels of evidence that are there. So it kind of depends on what studies have been done, and that's why a lot of it, Dr. Gregor's recommendations are always evidence-based, and so it doesn't mean chia isn't a good source. It actually is, but he makes his recommendations based on the levels of evidence that exist. So, but yeah, that's to answer your question. Chia is just fine. It's very healthy.
So you could hedge your bet and have some chia and some flax. That could be a choice you could make, which would add to that number 30 or 40 of variety of different plant foods that you have in your diet for your microbiome diversity. This is way too much fun. Yes, I see. Diane, I'll get it eventually. Give me a year.
Yeah. Well, I was zeroing in on the flax. So did Scott say when he goes to buy the Bob's Red Mill that's already ground, does he find that in the refrigerator?
Yeah, it's at the refrigerated section at Fred Meyer. I go to the Fred Meyer and off River Road, and it's just in the Nutrition Center in the refrigerated case that's there in the Nutrition Center. And it's golden flax meal, and it's already all ground in there.
Well, it's good to know because I've been buying at Trader Joe's, it's already ground. And we'll put it in the freezer right away, but I don't know how long it's been on the shelf. And so that's probably not a good idea that it, hasn't been kept refrigerated once it was ground, it sounds like.
Well, if it's sealed, I guess if it's sealed, it should be okay, but you can smell it. So if it smells rancid, it's like, how walnuts, if they sit around too long, they smell rancid. That's because they're so high in omega-3 fats. And so omega-3s are unstable fats. And so, think of it this way, how if you put bacon grease in a can on your counter, it'll turn solid, right? That's an example of a saturated fat, and that could sit there on your counter for 2 months and be totally fine because it's a very stable fat, saturated. So that's why it clogs up our arteries. Whereas unstable fats that are like omega-3 fats that stay liquid, they're kind of liquid fats, but they can turn rancid pretty fast because they're unstable. And so that's why if it's sealed, it's probably good for a while, but once it's opened, it best to be refrigerated. It lasts a little bit longer if it's refrigerated because it's an unstable fat. But that's those healthy fats are the unstable ones.
I keep mine refrigerated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is oil an unstable fat?
Well, if it stays liquid, it means it's unsaturated, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy because it could have a lot of omega-6 fats. So omega-6 fats are essential fats that we need too, but we don't want too many of the omega-6 because omega-6 fats lead to inflammation. The end product of omega-6 fat metabolism is something called arachidonic acid, which is what essentially, think about taking ibuprofen. So arachidonic acid is a prostaglandin, which is a type of inflammatory, something that's inflammatory. So when you take ibuprofen, it blocks the arachidonic acid and prostaglandins, which decreases inflammation. So think of omega-6 fats, which are also unsaturated, but they are unstable and they're pro-inflammatory. Whereas omega-3 fats, the ones that we want to have more of, the end product of those are anti-inflammatory products. And so they're already naturally anti-inflammatory. So that's why it's so important to get plenty of omega-3 and not so much omega-6. So omega-6 is like your corn oil and other vegetable oils and things like that. Even olive oil has a lot more omega-6 than omega-3, for example.
What about virgin, especially virgin olive oil? Is it also having omega-6 in there?
Yeah, so the omega-6 and omega-3 fats aren't a very big percentage of the unsaturated fats. It's actually a monounsaturated fat, so it's got more omega-9, I believe, is what it is. So it's not predominantly omega-6 and omega-3, but it has 14 times more omega-6 fats in it than omega-3. So the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is 14:1 in olive oil. And the ideal ratio is about 1:1 to 4:1. So you want to have no more than about 4 parts omega-6 fat to 1 part omega-3 fat. But that's why olive oil, people think of it as a healthier oil, which it is compared to some of the other oils, but it's still got 14 times more omega-6 fats than omega-3 fats. So it's still an inflammatory oil. Whereas because it is just an oil, but if you're getting your omega-3s from flax seeds and chia seeds and walnuts and things like that, you're getting there is still some omega-6 in walnuts and flax seeds and things, but it's very small amount and it's mostly omega-3. So that helps you balance out you want more omega-3, as much omega-3 as you can get and avoid the omega-6 as much as you can. I know it's a lot maybe more detail than most people want probably, but
even extra virgin olive oil.
Yep, even extra cold pressed olive oil. It's not good. It's not an ideal. That's why we want to avoid oil, because it's not a health food. It's the fat version of white sugar. So it's the fat equivalent of white sugar. It's just processed. It has little to no nutritional value, and it's just fat. That's why you want to avoid oil, and it's inflammatory.
I take just a teaspoon of it, maybe once every 2-3 weeks to fry something. Other than that, No,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Try to avoid it as much as you can. Yeah.
I hope this will
I'm-
work.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter and Barbara.
So I take it that you are not fans of the Italian or Mediterranean diet.
Yeah, I can tell you. Do you want to know why?
Jump right in.
Yeah, sure. So the Mediterranean diet is mostly a whole food plant-based diet, which is good. But the best study we have on the Mediterranean diet is called the PREDIMED study out of Spain. And it showed that you could reduce the risk of stroke by about 30%, but it did not show any reduction in risk for heart disease or in all-cause mortality, which means death from any cause. So it doesn't reduce your chance of dying. It doesn't reduce your chance of dying from a heart attack. It does reduce your chance of stroke by 30%. When the Mediterranean diet that was studied in a PREDIMED study is basically a whole food plant-based diet. So a diet based on fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. And then with the addition of some fish, some olive oil, and some goat cheese, some feta. And so that was the original Mediterranean diet from the island of Crete back in the 1950s. That was the model of the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet these days that people follow is, some fruits and vegetables and beans and whole grains, but lots of olive oil, lots of fish, lots of cheese. People kind of focus on the wrong thing. And so what we can say is if you take away the fish, the olive oil, and the goat cheese, now you have what Charlie and I are teaching, 100% whole food plant-based diet. And what that has been shown to do is actually reverse heart disease and reduce your risk of dying and reduce your risk of stroke. And so the reason we teach people to eat a whole food plant-based diet as opposed to the Mediterranean diet is just based on the science. So if you look at the science, that's what you find. And so that's why we say, so we should try to avoid eating fish and olive oil and goat cheese and just stick with the whole plant foods, which is the reason that diet is healthy. Because the reason I can say that too is in that same PREDIMED study, when they look at there's quintiles, and what that means is there's different arms of the study. And when they looked at the study of the people that ate the most plant foods that in that PREDIMED study, that was when they started to see reduction in death from any cause and death from heart disease. When you look at the whole group in the whole study, that was the 30% reduction in stroke, but no reduction in risk for dying of a heart attack or in dying from any cause. And so there's a lot of wisdom in that okay, so it wasn't the olive oil or the fish or the goat cheese that makes the Mediterranean diet have some benefits. It's the fact you're eating so many whole plant foods. And so when you go that next step and eliminate the olive oil, the cheese, and the fish, now you can actually reverse the #1 killer of heart disease. So that's kind of good. I'm glad you brought up that question because a lot of doctors kind of know about the Mediterranean diet, but they don't know that data. They don't know what I just said about, it was only a 30% reduction in stroke, not of heart attack. Because everyone thinks, you have heart disease, you should go on the Mediterranean diet. Well, yeah, that's much better than the standard American diet. That's moving in the right direction. Hey, it's almost to where what we're teaching here in these classes, but then let's take it a step further and actually tease out what are the foods that are promoting health, what are the foods that are maybe not promoting health. And I think that's a good summary of that.
Gotcha. And the Mediterranean diet today adds beef medallions and lots of pasta. So, yeah.
Yeah, and pasta's not the worst thing either. It's fairly low in glycemic index, and if you're doing like a whole wheat pasta with a tomato-based marinara and lots of veggies in it, that can still be a pretty healthy choice. It's just you don't want to douse everything in oil and do white flour pasta and then meat sauce and cheese and all those types of things. That's what makes it unhealthy, not the. So I'm trying to, I guess, defend the pasta a little bit. There's not necessarily anything bad about the pasta. It's just what you put on the pasta and how you prepare it. That's what's important.
Thank you.
And nuts and seeds give me migraines. So where can I get the omega-3 from?
The sea vegetables, like what Charlie was talking about, would be a good source. Charlie?
Yeah, so you could do sea vegetables like dulse or wakame or nori. Some of those are acquired tastes. First time I tried dulse, it was like I never wanted to eat it again. but now I kind of look forward to it every day. And so if you don't want to do that, you want to take a pill, you could do an algae form of omega-3 would probably be another option if you can't do flax seeds or you can't do walnuts.
I'm not familiar with Dulce. What is that again?
Dulce, D-U-L, I think it's S-E or C-E.
Dulce.
And it's, Dr. Greger recommends I think it's a 1 ounce bag. It comes in a little package, Whole Foods or wherever. Once a month, 1 package full. I think it's an ounce worth per person.
Amazon has omega-3 plant-based capsules.
Yeah, so if you get omega-3 from the algae source, again, I don't know, it could be supplements, so it's hard to know if it's regulated. But if that's your only option, that may be a reasonable thing to do to get omega-3s.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So does fish oil have omega-3 in it?
Yeah, it also has mercury and dioxin and some other toxic products that you probably don't want.
Yummy.
You wouldn't want to even feed them to Edward's parrot or parakeet. By the way, I love that parrot or parakeet walking on your shoulder intermittently. It's been fun to watch. Just wanted to acknowledge that we have another participant in the form of a bird. Is it a parrot or a parakeet?
Oh.
She's both, actually.
Yeah, I couldn't tell,
Yeah,
So
technically speaking, she's both.
Okay. All right. I never heard of that before. Parakeet.
Parakeet is just a parrot with a small parrot with a long tail.
Okay, good deal. We had a parrot one time, a cat and a dog, and the parakeet would stand on the dog's shoulders or the cat's shoulder. They all got along together. It was totally unbelievable.
Normally they eat each other.
Yeah, normally they do, but all right, that's getting a little off topic. So let's see. I have one chat. Okay, we're done there. Ken, you have your hand up still. Is that you didn't lower it, or do you have another question before we go on?
Oh, I just like to talk about fiber, and my hand was up during fiber talk.
Okay.
So I like it when you tell us the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber and which one takes the cholesterol and other bad things out with it.
All right, so we'll go ahead and play the game. The game goes like this. You have soluble fiber, which is like the oatmeal that you eat, and it's kind of dissolves and gets kind of mushy and stuff. And what happens is it acts like a wheelbarrow, or it acts like sticky gum. So when the cholesterol hits it, it hooks onto the soluble fiber, and the body wheelbarrows it right out of your body. Same way with excess estrogen. So you have decreased risk of breast cancer, let's say. And then same way with other toxins that maybe come in contact with the wall of your colon. So you'll have less colon cancer risk. So that's one form of fiber, the soluble fiber. Then there is the insoluble fiber, or resistant starch is another. These are both food for your microbiome. It's the insoluble fiber doesn't get mushy and dissolved. It comes out, it's sort of like stiff grass, if you think of it that way. It doesn't break down very easily, but the bacteria in your microbiome use that as their food source, along with some resistant starch. And then those two food sources feed your good bacteria and they feed you back. So you usually get a combination of both soluble, insoluble fiber from most all plants. Some have more than others. Oatmeal is the biggest soluble fiber, one where you would reduce your cholesterol fast. And I see Lisa's, go ahead, Scott.
I was just saying beans have a fair amount of soluble fiber too.
Yeah. So I see Lisa, you're at the party here, and wondering if you had anything that you wanted to add to any of this discussion.
I just wanted to join the party.
Okay, well, welcome. We'd love to see your face. I know that you gotta hide if you're gonna eat or whatever. Study,
Yeah.
make your phone calls. And Velvet, same thing. Nice to see you guys. Nice to have you. You know, for a while we had almost all blank screens, and now we have lots of faces in the room. It's very nice to see you all.
I do have a funny story. I'm on
Okay.
my pain management rotation, and I just started yesterday. And it's not exactly what I pictured. There's a lot of injections and steroids. But we had this patient come in yesterday, and she got some sort of nerve block procedure done. And I'm not sure what happened, but at the end of it, the doctor asked me to go get her Dr. Pepper from our cafeteria and give it to her, because she comes every time she gets this injection, they give her a Dr. Pepper. And there was no Dr. Pepper. There was only a diet Dr. Pepper, and there was Coca-Cola. And she was like, I don't do diet. I only do like full sugar. And so she picked the Coca-Cola. But then when she left, she was like, can I just have both of them? And I was like, I'm not going to take them. So yeah, go ahead. But it's just so odd. And it was kind of hilarious. But it's the only time I'll give someone soda is when the attending doctor tells me to, I guess.
That is kind of very bizarre, because if you think about it, those multiple cubes of sugar in that sugary drink are inflammatory in the long run and causing more pain. You know, it's like, it's really sad. Most physicians really don't get it. And fortunately, you've been to enough classes and sessions that you do. And I doubt that you'll be rewarding your patients with Dr. Pepper or any soda after.
Well, it's soothing in the short term, right? So sure, you know, you give before you do a vasectomy on a baby, or not vasectomy, before you circumcise a baby, sorry, before you circumcise a baby, you give them a little sugary drink because it makes them more docile, makes them soothed, and so it's so yeah, same thing. A lot of people they'll get that dopamine surge when they drink the sugary soda, and that gives them some short-term pain relief or soothing. But then, yeah, the irony is that it's going to cause more inflammation in the body, which is what you don't want when you're having pain.
It'll be out the door by then.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Better go to another question.
All right. I don't know.
We're only gonna have to do a week. We're gonna have to do a part 4 next week for sure.
Well, you know, we've been having fun with this, and let's see, where are we going on? I think we are past 20. You know,
We're at 22, I think.
In 2 weeks, allium group and cruciferous group are best at fighting. Anybody have the answer for that?
Colon cancer.
Cancer. Yeah, cancer is the word for allium group and cruciferous group. And, you know, there's really, these videos are worth watching because they're just kind of fun. And especially for the new people here, it's going to be, I just want to play these couple videos here.
But anyway, back to beans. In terms of nutrient density, nutrients per calorie, are beans the most nutritious class of whole foods? Or is it fruit, nuts and seeds, vegetables, or whole grains? What should go on the base of a healthy eating pyramid? Beans, fruits, nuts, veggies, or grain? Definitely vegetables. But which are the healthiest ones? A major advance was made this year ranking vegetables. Graphs like this that I've shared over the years that compare the antioxidant power of foods are all based on very primitive methods, basically just measuring how much a food slows down an oxidation reaction between two chemicals in a machine. That was the best we had, but it required a leap of faith that what was happening in the test tube could be extrapolated to what might actually happen in living human tissue. This year, though, a landmark study was published pitting 34 common vegetables against 8 different types of human cancers: breast cancer, brain tumors, kidney cancer, lung cancer, childhood brain tumors, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and stomach cancer. Let's look at breast cancer. I'll cover up the answers. What's being measured is tumor cell proliferation. Here's the control. You drip some water on a human breast tumor, and nothing happens. It's still powering away at 100% growth rate. And these 7 vegetables appear useless against breast cancer, no different than placebo. But these 6 cut the cancer growth rate in half, and these 5 at the end stop cancer growth completely, stop these tumor cells dead in their tracks. The take-home message number 1 from this new data is that we need to eat a variety of vegetables. Take a look. Radishes, for example, do nothing against pancreatic cancer. In fact, if anything, they may actually accelerate growth. But against stomach cancer, they completely eliminated tumor cell growth. On the other hand, orange bell peppers don't do much for stomach cancer, but can cut prostate cancer growth by more than 75%. So we need to eat a variety of vegetables because they each tend to target different cancers. If you're particularly concerned about a specific cancer, like if you have a strong family history of breast cancer, then you can narrow it down and really nail those 5 or 6 veggies every day that excel at targeting breast tissue. But otherwise, to fight against any kind of cancer, we've got to eat a portfolio of vegetables to cover all our bases.
So he continues on for one more video on the best anti-cancer fighting, and it's the second one here.
That doesn't mean some veggies aren't better than others. Some of these vegetables target multiple cancers at the same time. So using this groundbreaking new data, let's play Which is Healthier. Imagine you're standing in line at one of those custom made-to-order salad places where you get to choose your lettuce, choose your toppings, and then choose your dressing. Let's assume you don't have a strong family history of any particular cancer, and so aren't trying to hone in on avoiding one tumor over any other. First, let's choose our lettuce. Boston, endive, radicchio, romaine, or spinach? Which is healthier? Out of the 5, spinach is number 1 against breast cancer. Remember, the farther down, the better it is at slowing down these cancer cells. Number 1 against brain tumors. Number 1 against kidney cancer. Number 1 against lung cancer. And pediatric brain tumors. That's why we need to feed our kids spinach. Number 1 against pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and stomach cancer. Now, it's not number 1 overall. There are 16 vegetables more powerful at stopping stomach cancer growth than spinach, but out of those 5 salad greens, spinach wins out across the board against every cancer type tested. What if the salad place said they were out of spinach, though? Which comes in second out of the 4 left to choose from? For breast cancer, radicchio is number 2. Against brain tumors, radicchio. Kidney cancer, radicchio. Radicchio. Romaine, radicchio, radicchio, and radicchio. So overall, out of those choices for greens, radicchio is second healthiest. Back to the menu. Next, we get to choose 4 toppings. Now, there's a long line of people behind you, all staring at us to make our choice. We don't have time to ponder and pick the 4 absolute best, but we can at least make a guess as to roughly where on the graph they are. Yes or no? According to this amazing new data, do carrots slow down cancer cell growth rates more than 50%? Yes or no? The answer is no, 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 and no. So, shredded carrots aren't going to make our top toppings choice. What about shredded beets? Yes or no? Yes. Super yes. Brain tumor, just beat it. Kidney cancer is a no, close to 50%, but not quite there. But then yes, 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 yes. So, overall, yes for beets. Are we putting cucumber on our salad? As tasty as they may be, no. For most cancers, it suppressed tumor cell growth less than 50%. What about tomatoes? No tomatoes either. What about a potato? You can actually choose potatoes for your salad. Yes or no? No potatoes either. Wait a second, no iceberg lettuce, carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, potatoes, that's all people eat. That's the problem. Even people eating their vegetables aren't really eating their vegetables. The majority of veggies people commonly eat have little effect. Cutting to the chase. The line at the salad place is now out the door at this point. In this study, there was one clear winner, one vegetable that completely 100% stopped cancer growth in 7 out of the 8 tumor lines. One of the most important findings of the year. Which vegetable was it? Was it bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, fiddlehead ferns, garlic, kale, or red cabbage? Number 1 against breast cancer, garlic. Number 1 against brain tumors, garlic. Number 2 against kidney cancer, lung cancer, garlic. Childhood brain tumors, garlic. Pancreatic cancer, garlic. Prostate cancer, and stomach cancer, garlic. So might I suggest a garlicky salad dressing? But wait, is it just that garlic is toxic to all cells? Yes, it stops the growth of cancer cells, but Maybe it stops the growth of healthy cells too. That wouldn't be good. They tested for that. The black bars are the cancer cells. The white bars are the normal cells. As you can see, garlic slams cancer cells, but doesn't touch normal cells. And the same thing with pretty much all the vegetables. They're selective. They go after the cancer cells, but leave the normal cells alone. Veggies are amazing. Now, if you didn't pick garlic and instead chose one of those others, you probably weren't far off. The two best families of vegetables for cancer prevention are the cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli, kale, cabbage, and the allium family vegetables, like garlic, onions, and leeks. Let me just run through this one last time to highlight this important concept. Starting from the beginning, cruciferous vegetables in green, allium family vegetables in yellow. So what I want you to notice is the clustering of colors over to the right side, which illustrates the power of these two superfood classes of vegetables, whether for breast cancer, brain cancer, kidney cancer, lung cancer, or brain cancer. Interestingly, you'll notice that bok choy is often the kind of odd one out, apparently the least healthy of the cruciferous vegetables. Pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and finally, stomach cancer. So, you know all those recipes that start with like garlic and onions, and then you throw in some greens? That is the way to eat. The researchers conclude the inclusion of cruciferous and allium family vegetables in the diet is essential for effective dietary-based chemopreventive or cancer preventive strategies.
Pretty impressive all in all. Hopefully that makes a bit of an impact on you all. And you say, wow, maybe we need to be rethinking what food choices we actually make for ourselves and for our family. And then the challenge will be, how do you accomplish that? How do you bring in new foods to people who like the old foods? So that's for another session, I suspect.
Now, and real quick before we go, I wanted to show Peter and Barbara, since they're new, do you guys have are you on the group email list for the weekly these weekly classes? Have you signed up for that on the website yet? No, okay. I'll show you the class website. Let me go here. Get this down. There's the home page for the classes. So go to if you have one of the class flyers, it's just livelifestylemedicine.com is the website for these classes. And you can sign up right here, subscribe to the weekly class newsletter, just put in your name and email, and you'll get a welcome newsletter, and then you'll get a newsletter from me every Sunday morning about the class topics and lots of other information. And as I wrote a little warning here, if you don't receive the initial welcome letter or the weekly Sunday morning email, check your junk file because it often goes there. So check that. And then I'd recommend scrolling down on the homepage here and watching this. I recorded this tutorial of gives you a tour of what's all available on the website, all the resources, the classes that we record, and you can go all the way back to the beginning of this year and watch all the classes from the beginning. So introductions and meal preparation and planning and all the different topics, and you can selectively watch any of those classes. And then we will start the lecture series over again in January. So stay tuned for that. But if you want to get a jump on things, you can watch this tutorial and start watching the class recordings and you'll see where everything's at on there. So I just wanted to share that with you, so you have those resources.
I have a
Any que-
question. Does
Yeah.
stomach cancer, is that including colon cancer?
I don't think that was one he had listed there, but we do know that that colon cancer risk is reduced greatly by eating these whole plant foods. That's one of the cancers that responds really well to diet therapy.
Thank you.
Scott, can you show me your screen again? I want to see where your volume control is. Someone's having trouble on their Apple where they can't hear the volume.
They can't hear me, you mean?
No, they can hear you. It was from this afternoon. Jerry, she's having trouble with her volume.
Oh, it's
And-
just on my my keyboard. So I have
Oh,
a volume up and a volume down button on my keyboard.
Okay. And is that on the top of the keyboard or the bottom?
The top right hand corner, my keypad for my Mac. It's a F11 and F12. F11 is reducing volume and F12 is increasing volume.
Okay, thanks. That's what I needed to know.
Oh, sure.
So you do have a meat withdrawal course, right?
Wheat withdrawal. well, we do have a class on food addiction and behavior change that was back in February. You can watch.
Can anybody
Thank you very much.
comment?
Really
You're welcome.
Anybody in the class comment about the trouble that they've had with changing their diet and eliminating meat and going through withdrawal? Anybody care to comment about that?
They don't even want to talk about it.
Well, most of the patients I've taught this to over 2,000 patients over the last 10 years, and what I hear in hindsight, a lot of them say, yeah, actually, it wasn't as hard as I thought to give up meat. The thing I had the hardest trouble with was getting rid of cheese, getting rid of dairy and sweets and cheese and processed foods and stuff like that, because they're just so much more addicting, so much higher in sugar, salt, and fat. So whereas, eating a steak or chicken or whatever it was, it kind of like you start to lose your taste for it pretty quickly. A lot of people do, but
Salmon, is that because the ocean's so toxic? Salmon's not even recommended?
yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, eating salmon's better than eating bacon or sausage or cheese. That would be a healthier choice because at least there's some healthy fats in the salmon. But yeah, it's still going to have saturated fat, still going to have cholesterol, still going to have methyl mercury, dioxins. Still good, there's still no fiber. So it's not a healthy choice compared to beans and whole grains or any whole plant food, but it is a better choice than eating bacon or sausage. So I wouldn't, if you were just trying to get yourself away from bacon, sausage, cheese, processed foods, then fish is an okay choice if you compare it to that thing, to those other things. And so food is always, it's triage, right? It's always, is a food healthy? Well, compared to what, right? Yeah. So I mean, I would say that's a less of a priority. If someone was still eating bacon and sausage, I would recommend they eat fish instead of bacon or sausage. But that doesn't necessarily make fish a healthy choice, but it's a healthier choice, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Really
Oh, you're
quick, I
welcome.
want to say something.
Oh yeah,
I
Velvet,
just want to say something. So changing from like eating meat to going plant-based, I think to remember you got to eat enough. You're going to eat a lot more than you're used to. And if you're not eating enough, then you're going to crave those old foods that you used to have. And so it's really important to make sure you're planning ahead and you have snacks with you, and or else you're going to go reach for those things because you don't have anything. And so you're like, oh, I'll just eat this one time. So that's really important.
Good tips. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Velvet.
You're welcome.
See you next week.
So I just wanted to say hi to all of you. I have classes on Tuesday night, so I haven't been able to join because I get out of class at 7:30, but I figured I'd jump on and say hi. So I've
Well,
missed
glad
all
you
of
did.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yes, all of you too.
Scott,
Charlie,
thank you.
What's the name of that video, that the Greger video on which veggies are cancer fighters for specific cancers?
I'll go back and share it with you here in just a moment. It's called Veggies versus Cancer, and use the #1 anti-cancer vegetable. They're on Gregor's site.
And I was surprised to hear him say that tomatoes don't affect prostate cancer, because I was under the impression that the
I knew
pigment.
you were going to ask that. I know Dr. Barnard, he says that tomatoes do fight cancer. And so this was a study that showed that, it helped maybe close to 50% in one area. I think that was prostate cancer, but it wasn't nearly as good as other things. So I think that tomatoes are fine, but they're not nearly as good as the allium or cruciferous choices you can make.
So keep eating your tomatoes. It's just fine.
Yeah.
Because they're healthy for lots of other reasons too. But yeah, just that particular study.
And the same way with carrots. Keep eating your carrots. They're good for your eyes, whatever. Just because they don't kill cancer cells. Keep eating a variety of fruits and vegetables, whole grains and legumes in your diet. It's been great fun. Looking forward to another week next week. And
part 4.
Part 4.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fun to go through them slowly like this. It's good.
It was fun tonight. Anyway, thank you all for coming.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Good night. You too.
Bye-bye.